Hey guys, what happens in the garden when these soldiers, these Pharisees, these chief priests confront Jesus and his disciples and say, "Hey, are you Jesus of Nazareth?" And Jesus comes out and he's like, "Yeah, I am." What happens when it says, "So when he said to them, 'I am he,' they drew back and fell to the ground"? Now, a lot of Trinitarians are going to argue here that this is Jesus saying the divine name, and that when he says it, they're blown to their, blown back. I'm talking like they got hit with lightning, like boom, sonic boom blasted them back. And I think this is a pretty convincing argument for a Trinitarian if you don't understand the context of this conversation, this scenario that Christ is having with these Jews, these Pharisees. And so what's going on here? They confront him. They say, "Are you Jesus the Nazarene, Jesus of Nazareth?" He says, "Yeah, I am. I'm he." They drew back, fell to the ground, and then Jesus asked them again, "Who do you seek?" And they say, "Jesus the Nazarene, I am he." So the argument I think that Trinitarians are commonly going to use here is that since he says, "I am he," and he blows them backwards, that he must be God somehow. The problem is, this is not the divine name in Greek. Egoimi is not the divine. Egoimi hoon is the divine name in the Septuagint, but certainly any Greek person can say egoimi, I am, because that's a basic part of speech that you have to know in order to communicate with anyone. So what's going on here? Is he blasting them backwards like with a sonic boom kind of voice? I don't think so. If he wanted to avoid this kind of confrontation, this violent altercation with these people, he certainly tells us, Jesus does, because Simon Peter draws his sword right after that and cuts off one of the ears of one of them guards that show up. And Jesus says, "Put your sword away. Put it away. Should I not drink from the cup the Father has given me?" So Jesus here, he's clearly not trying to call for violence. So why would he blast them backwards with some supernatural thundering voice 2 verses prior? Doesn't make any sense. Whenever he goes in front of the Sanhedrin and they can't find anything to charge him with, to get him, don't you think that somebody would say, "Hey, do you remember when that guy assaulted us a few hours ago? You remember when he literally blasted backwards some soldiers and chief priests, probably old men, probably hurting them?" Doesn't make sense. And thirdly, Jesus says, "I am," like "I am he," before Abraham was, "I am," unless you believe that I am he, right? So he uses this phraseology a lot. And some other people in the New Testament also use egoimi, "I am." The man that Jesus healed, everybody was looking at him saying, "Is this the guy? Is this the one Jesus healed?" And somebody would say, "No, it just looks like him." And then the guy comes forward and says, "Egoimi, I am," or "I am he." In the context, it's a he. So why is it that every other instance of "I am" in the New Testament, no one goes flying backwards, like in 8:58 in John, before Abraham was, "I am"? No one went flying backwards because this isn't that kind of power. I don't even know if he can do this, right? All the authority he's been given to forgive sins, to even walk on water, but does he have the ability to blast people backwards with his voice? I don't know. I would say he probably does, but he's not. He actually calls out violence in 18:6 here when they arrest him. He's saying, "I don't want to be violent right now. Stop cutting people's ears off." Doesn't make sense that he blasted them back. The Sanhedrin and no one else comes forward and says, "Hey, that dude assaulted us earlier. You remember that?" Thirdly, everywhere else he uses "I am" in the New Testament, no one goes flying backwards. So whenever somebody, or I'd say to my friends, my fellow Christians, my Trinitarian friends here, say that Jesus is invoking the divine name, one, it's not the divine name. Secondly, they're going to argue that he blew them backwards with a thundering sonic boom voice. It's just not here. I mean, when it says they drew back and fell to the ground, guys, it's because they realized, at least some of them, that this was God's Christ. This was the chosen one, the King of the Jews, the King of the world, the promised Messiah, the Son of God. They fell back in worship of this man, saying, "This is the Messiah." That's why you see in a couple other verses before, when they send a guard out to get Jesus, he comes back and says, the guy that sent him says, "Hey, why didn't you bring Jesus with you?" And he says, "I have never heard a man speak the way this man has spoken before, ever." He knew this man was special, and so did they. So they fell down and worshiped him as King of the Jews. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.